Hi guys, it's Marissa and Richard here from Rise High, and today we're sharing with you an example of how we've recently helped a Rise High client. Because sometimes when people want to purchase a new home, they actually want to purchase it from a family member. And what we call this in the finance world is we call it a favourable purchase. Because generally in these situations, you might actually be purchasing the property at a lower purchase price than what it's actually worth, but we actually want to borrow against what it's worth, not what you're actually paying for it. So Richard, you've recently helped someone do this. Can you give us a bit of background on the client and what they were trying to achieve and how it all panned out?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of the client reached out to me. There's a lot of the property, the usual property stuff that's taken away because they've already found their home. They're not out there wondering what their budget is or wondering what property they're looking to buy. They've already pretty much agreed that they're going to buy mum and dad's property or whoever that might be in the direct family. So in this case, that was right. They had a property. It was one of the members' parents, and there was an agreed upon price, and that price was literally to clear the debt amount owed to.
So it was a lot less than what the house was worth.
100%. So
it's obviously in these situations, the parents are trying to help out the children to get their foot in the door and take over the debt, but own the property in their own right.
Yeah, and in this case, it's their first home buyer. So it was a new process for them to understand how much could they borrow, could they actually afford to take on even the smaller debt amount. So we would just take that time, or have taken that time with the client to sit down and explain, right, we're going to carry a debt amount of X to buy out or pay the parents back, but we're also going to need to think about stamp duty and government charges, which is not calculated on the price they paid for the home. It's calculated against the price that the council deems the value of the home. So
that's a really important point that I think most people don't realise. So yes, your parents can help you through giving you a lower purchase price, but the actual stamp duty portion will be calculated on the value of the property. So that's a really important thing to point out.
Yeah, so we just went through those.
And you need
numbers.
to make sure you've got enough money for that.
Exactly.
You know, when you're going through this process of purchasing, and that's something that often gets forgotten. So it's great that you were able to point that out to them and help them ensure that before they went ahead with the purchase.
Exactly right. So in some cases, there's enough equity to borrow everything, and the banks will allow you to do that.
Which means that potentially they could own the home with no deposit?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we would then show the bank in certain circumstances that you have been good with your money in other ways. So maybe you've got good rental history, or you've been saving aggressively, and we can, give the client confidence that they can afford a mortgage, but also show to the bank that these are good and healthy customers that they should take on their books. So it was, in this case, it was the ability to borrow everything because the equity was enough to do so. But in the past, I've had clients where it was very, very tight. So we have to then navigate how much cash needs to be put into the purchase as well to make it work. So that's underway at the moment.
So they're currently in the process of purchasing
that home. We've gone through the setup stage of that, but what was also interesting in this one is they were looking to, they know the home because it's mum and dad's home. They knew they wanted to add on some renovations very, very quickly.
Awesome.
So the next part of our process was actually, how do we then look to use equity that's already there, but also generate some more equity by doing a renovation.
Yeah, awesome.
They've got a small family, they need to add rooms, add bathrooms, open some living. It's an older home, so just bring a bit of a tired home back up to speed.
Yeah, awesome.
So we're in that process as well of getting finance approval for them to do that, for peace of mind as well.
And what are some of the things that you had to help them with through the considerations around the renovation? Because renovation, it sounds like a fairly substantial renovation that they're planning to do. So what are some of the considerations around that renovation that you've been able to help them with?
Definitely. So knowing that the budget for renovation was going to be plus 100,000, for me, quite quickly, I'd realised the bank would probably want to control the money and release the money per invoice as it came through. because it wasn't just an add-on of a pergola or an add-on, maybe a knock of a wall down in a new kitchen, which can be I suppose deemed as, non-structural renovations. This was definitely going to be structural. So they're knowing the bank's going to want to control the money. I'd explain that to the clients. What does that mean? That means once the slab goes into the ground for the new renovation piece, you would give the invoice to us. We would process that.
So that would be the invoice for the builder's fixed price build contract to do the renovation.
Yeah,
so that's an important consideration. I mean, in some instances, it is possible to do a substantial renovation without having the bank control the progress payments to the builder. But obviously, in this situation, the bank needed to control the payments to the builder. And, sometimes that works out better for the client because they don't have to worry about paying the builder. The bank does that directly, which takes a lot of the pressure away from them as well.
Definitely.
And is that something that you help your clients with, making sure that the bank meets those progress payments when they fall due?
We definitely do. So what we would want to do with our clients is make sure that the work is substantially complete. They would then sign off on that invoice and we would process that with the bank. We have a lot of, we have the contact with the bank to follow up on these payments so that they don't get lost in the system. Whereas, if you just go directly to the bank, you're not to know if that's done or not. And you'd have to follow up, maybe be on long call wait times. One interesting point that you made, and maybe we skipped over very quickly, is around the bank being able to just give you the money, let's say a large lump sum to pay. The reason we didn't go down that pathway and I sort of diverted straight to the progress payment point was because of equity. Right, so if we were to take out, let's say $100,000 worth of equity, we were going to exceed the bank's rule book and what they would accept based on the current value of the home. So what we needed to do is we needed to project out what this new renovations value would do to the home in terms of improvement. So we might go from a 550 value. In my eyes, maybe we might add 50 to 100 grand's worth of value in the home, and then therefore we can borrow against the new value of the home. And then we don't have unnecessary bank fees.
So you were able to get a valuation of the property based on what it would be worth after the renovations are completed, which then helps the client to access those money that they wouldn't actually necessarily be able to access otherwise.
That's right.
And that valuation process was free for the client?
It's free for the client. It's really easy, and we're ultimately doing so many either builds or renovations in-house that we're well equipped with what we need to support to the valuer, so we get a really, really good outcome. Obviously, we can't impact the outcome and the actual number, but giving those valuers the right documentation will help us with a real true representation of that finished value.
Awesome. So these clients, you help them to buy a new home from their parents. You're going to help them with the renovation, which is awesome. How does it feel to have helped them? Yeah,
it feels really, really awesome. Every client that I help, I get sort of quite excited. It's really good to go on that journey with them. And especially with first home buyers, this is a big thing for them to bite off straight into a renovation. So, it's really...
So having you in their corner would be quite handy.
That's right. So I'm really, really happy to jump in, to get my hands dirty a little bit and make sure that they know we're there to support them, but also, just to guide them through whatever comes up.
Well, if you're looking to buy a property from family or you're looking to do a renovation, we'd love to help you and talk about your goals and dreams and help put a plan in place to make that come to reality. So please reach out anytime with questions or a free consult. We'd love to help you out. Thanks, Richard.
Thank
and
you.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you again later. Bye.